You know, it's a cliche, but we all know that as we age, we get wiser. Not necessarily smarter, but hopefully wiser. There's not many things in my life that I actually regret. Well, there's a couple where I may have hurt someone's feelings, but in the main, I see all of the good and the bad as formative and learning experiences that have resulted in where I am today. Now, I'm still far from perfect, but these days I'm so much more aware of the world around me and the people around me, and even people I haven't met, I guess. My sense of community has grown enormously over the last few years, which surprises me, as I've been told so many times that people tend to be left-wing in their youth and become, well, progressively more right-wing and more conservative as they age. I haven't done that. I've always been reasonably left-wing, but if anything, I've moved further and further into the realms of wanting to fight the injustices of the world. Now, I'm passionate about equality and equity and justice, and I strongly believe in helping others, in giving back, and in volunteering at least part of my time to the service of others. And I'm not even religious. Don't get me wrong. I still believe in capitalism and competition, but there's nuance here. Life isn't black and white. So where am I going with this? Well, let me tell you a little story. Now, back in 1992, I was a poor student at the University of Western Australia. I was working nights to support myself whilst studying full-time, and an advertisement popped up in the student newspaper. Now, this is a little bit embarrassing. They were chasing sperm donors. So, for two reasons, I applied. Firstly, it paid. And secondly, I figured that helping couples conceive was a noble thing to do, and best of all, it was all legally anonymous. And the anonymity was the only reason that I could really justify doing it. So I undertook all of the tests, family and social and genetic, and passed with flying colours. I donated consistently twice a week for months, and that's a lot of donations. Now, perhaps you can see where this is heading. Nearly 30 years goes by. Now I'm in a meeting and my phone beeps, and I take a quick look at the notification. Are you my dad? Suddenly the meeting was no longer as important as it otherwise was, and my mind starts swimming. And I know it can't be because I've impregnated anyone. I've been married since 1998 and I've never strayed. So I immediately realise that it's most likely a donor-conceived child. But how did they find me? It was all anonymous. The clinic didn't even supposedly have my full name, my full contact details. Well, if you've been keeping up with technology, you'd be aware of companies like Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage. These are consumer-oriented DNA and genetic testing firms. Now, DNA testing has really only come into the reach of ordinary folk in the last probably 5 to 10 years. And what they're starting to reveal is scary. Now, keep in mind, I wasn't even on Ancestry, and yet I was tracked down by a biological child of mine who had their DNA tested by them. Now, I suspect that there's a lot of blokes who thought they were anonymous and who are about to be decloaked. I know I have at least 2 biological children as a result of my donations, and there's maybe considerably more. I suspect the number may grow as more people get tested. So the question is, how do I feel about this? Well, not too bad actually. I actually told my wife about my donations when we first got together. So while this was a surprise, it wasn't a surprise. And I've now met both of those biological kids, and they seem lovely. But the one lesson I really have learned is that the concept of anonymous donations is flawed. Not only will you be found, but it's really not fair on the donor-conceived child who could end up not knowing their genetic history. Now, I strongly believe that as a donor, I don't have any responsibility for the kids who were conceived by parents who did pay a heavy price for the privilege of being able to have kids. But at the same time, I really do feel I have to step up and accept that there is a genetic link and that I should provide any information that they want, especially in terms of their genetics. And in terms of an ongoing relationship, I'm happy to have that friendship. But I already have my own family, and they're going to take time to come to terms with all of this. It's a difficult situation, and time will help normalize it. Meeting a 27-year-old woman with her own child for the first time, a 27-year-old woman who is your daughter, is the sort of stuff you only see in movies. So far, all is good, but let this be a warning to everyone. Genetic donations are not anonymous. And if you donated, you will get a knock on the door at some point. Now, please do the right thing. Accept it. Try to enjoy it. Life is an adventure, and it's the unexpected stuff that really makes it interesting.